The velvet rope snapped like a promise broken too soon, and Luke's fist clenched around the frayed end as the usher's voice sliced through the pre-show hum. "Sir, these seats aren't yours anymore. Corporate override." Zachary's laugh was a jagged thing, bitter and raw, echoing off the gilded walls of the majestic theater as he shoved his twin's shoulder. Not hard, but enough to ignite the fire they'd both been nursing since the cab ride from Brooklyn. Override? That's rich. Coming from a suit who probably buys his empathy on Wall Street. In that electric second, as the crowd's murmurs swelled like a gathering storm, their mother, Eleanor Voss, the woman who'd clawed her way from a queen's tenement to the C-suite of Voss Media, stepped forward from the shadows, her Louboutins clicking like the hammer of a loaded gun. She didn't raise her voice. She never had to. Instead, she slipped a single matte black business card into the CEO's manicured palm, her eyes locking onto his with the precision of a headline she'd bury tomorrow. The man's face drained of color, his bluster folding like a bad bet, and in the stunned silence that followed, Luke felt the world tilt, not toward ruin, but toward the reckless, redemptive fury of blood and chosen love. The Majestic Theater on West 44th Street wasn't just a building. It was a cathedral of dreams, where the ghosts of Ethel Merman and Zero Mustel still lingered in the proscenium arch, whispering secrets to anyone foolish enough to listen. For Luke and Zachary Voss, those identical twins who'd grown up sharing everything from scraped knees to stolen kisses under the covers, tonight was supposed to be sacred. Their first Broadway show together since coming out, Rent, of all things, that raw anthem to outcasts and lovers in the shadow of AIDS and ambition. Tickets snagged on a whim from a scalper outside a dive bar in Hell's Kitchen. VIP seats in the orchestra pit, close enough to feel the actors' breaths mingle with the orchestra's swell. But New York had a way of chewing up the vulnerable and spitting out the bones, and tonight, it started with an usher named Marco, his name tag crooked like his smile. "Gents," he'd said, clipboard in hand, "appreciate the enthusiasm, but these seats, row A, seats 5 and 6, they're reassigned. Mr. Harlan Thorpe, CEO of Apex Dynamics, needs them for his party. Complimentary champagne and all." Luke, the bolder of the two, the one with the tattoo of a phoenix curling up his left forearm, a remnant from a wild summer in Fire Island, had frozen mid-sip of his overpriced gin and tonic. At 24, he was the artist, the barista slinging lattes at a Williamsburg cafe by day and sketching feverish portraits of drag queens by night. His dark hair fell in deliberate waves, his green eyes sharp as the shards of his shattered heteronormative facade. Reassigned? We paid $500 a pop. This isn't some Amex black card flex. Zachary, ever the diplomat, the twin who'd channeled his queerness into a law internship at a firm that specialized in LGBTQ+ rights, placed a steadying hand on Luke's knee under the table. Zach was the mirror image. Same tousled hair, same lithe build honed from weekend hikes in the Palisades, but his fire burned cooler, a steady blue flame against Luke's inferno. "Marco, buddy, there's gotta be a mix-up. We're not budging. We've been planning this for months." Marco shifted, his loafers squeaking on the lobby's polished oak. "Look, it's not me. It's the house policy. Corporate sponsors get priority. Apex Dynamics dropped a fortune on the season. Mr. Thorpe's arriving any minute with his execs. You can move to the mezzanine. Better acoustics up there, they say." The mezzanine. Luke's stomach twisted like a knife in gut check therapy. Up there, you'd miss the spit and sweat, the way the performers locked eyes with the front row like they were singing confessions straight to your soul. This wasn't about seats. It was about erasure, the same bullshit they'd fought in high school hallways in suburban Jersey. Faggots hissed under breaths. Lockers slammed on tentative handholds. Coming out at 18 had been a joint declaration. A middle finger to their absent dad who'd bolted for Silicon Valley when they were toddlers, leaving Eleanor to raise two boys who loved boys in a world that still pretended otherwise. Fuck that. Luke spat, standing so fast his chair scraped like nails on a chalkboard. Heads turned, tourists in Red Heart New York tees, a gaggle of Midwestern theater nerds clutching playbills. Zachary rose too, his jaw set, but before he could murmur the placating words that always diffused Luke's tempests, the lobby doors swung open with the whoosh of entitlement. Enter Harlan Thorpe, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair slicked like a Wall Street shark, suit tailored sharper than his divorce decree. Flanked by two assistants, lithe, interchangeable blondes in pencil skirts, he scanned the room like he owned the air molecules. And in a way, he did. Apex Dynamics powered half the apps on their phones, the algorithms that decided whose feeds brimmed with pride parades and whose with conversion therapy ads. Problem here? Thorpe's voice was oiled leather, smooth but unyielding. His eyes flicked over the twins dismissively, lingering just a beat too long on their linked arms. A flicker of something Luke couldn't place. Disdain? Desire? It didn't matter. The hook was set. Marco jumped like a marionette. Mr. Thorpe, just a seating hiccup. These gentlemen. Boys, Thorpe corrected, the word dripping patronage. Appreciate you making way. Big fan of Rent. Actually. Mark and Roger. Reminds me of my Yale days, he chuckled, a sound like grinding gears, and extended a hand as if brosealing a deal. Harlan Thorpe. You know the name. Luke didn't take it. Luke Voss. And no, we don't. But we know bullshit when it smells like it. Zachary winced, squeezing Luke's elbow. A silent easy, bro. But Thorpe's laugh boomed, drawing more stares. Feisty. I like that. Tell you what, switch seats, and I'll hook you up with tickets to Hamilton next season. Front row. The offer hung there, a gilded cage. Hamilton, Lin-Manuel's masterpiece, the show that had made Zachary weep in a YouTube clip, dreaming of histories rewritten for queers like them. But Luke saw the trap. It was charity from on high, a pat on the head for the boys who should know their place. We're good, thanks. These seats are ours. Thorpe's smile thinned. Not anymore. House rules. Or do I need to call security? That was when Eleanor emerged from the throng, a vision in emerald silk that hugged her curves like a second skin. 48. She was the queen of Voss Media, a digital empire built on viral exposés and unapologetic feminism. Divorced twice, first from their deadbeat dad, second from a venture capitalist who'd mistaken boardrooms for bedrooms. She'd poured her steel into raising Luke and Zach, teaching them that love wasn't a transaction, no matter how many zeros padded the check. Harlan, she said, her voice a velvet blade, parting the crowd like the Red Sea. Fancy running into you here. Still dodging my calls about that Out magazine profile? Thorpe's posture stiffened, his hand freezing mid-gesture. Eleanor Voss. Didn't peg you for rent. Thought you were more wicked, green with envy and all. She smiled, all teeth and no warmth. And that's when she did it. Slid the business card from her clutch, embossed with Voss Media Group, unfiltered truths. But it wasn't just a card. It was a grenade pin pulled. Read the fine print, darling. Your latest merger has got more leaks than a Chelsea Piers rooftop. Care to discuss over intermission champagne? Or shall we let the house manager sort this? Inconvenience. The lobby fell into a hush, the air thick as Act One's opening chord. Thorpe's face cycled through crimson to ashen, his assistants exchanging glances like spooked deer. Marco mumbled something about checking with the front office and vanished into the crowd. Luke's heart hammered, pride swelling for the woman who'd once stormed a PDA meeting to defend their right to bring same-sex dates to prom. Zachary's grip tightened, a shared pulse of "we got this." But as Thorpe pocketed the card with a curt nod, "This isn't over, Eleanor," and stalked toward the bar, Luke caught it, the way his ex, "Wait, no." Thorpe's eyes lingered on Zachary. Not dismissively this time, but with a hunger that twisted Luke's gut. "You okay?" he whispered to his twin. Zach nodded, but his eyes were distant, chasing shadows. "Yeah. Just let's get our seats back." They did. Eventually, the house manager comping them the champagne Thorpe had promised. As the lights dimmed and seasons of love swelled, Luke leaned into Zach's shoulder, their thighs pressing in the dark. The music wrapped around them like a blanket, but the seed of unease had been planted. Harlan Thorpe wasn't just a CEO. He was a ghost from Zachary's past, one that smelled of betrayal and broken dorm room promises. And Eleanor? She sipped her flute with the satisfaction of a checkmate, but her glance at her boys held worry, the kind that mothers hoard like heirlooms. Little did they know, the real show was just beginning. A drama of tangled desires, corporate knives in the dark, and the unbreakable tether of twin souls navigating a city that loved them fiercely but forgave nothing. The afterglow of intermission buzzed like cheap Prosecco, but the Voss trio claimed a corner booth in the theater's swanky lounge. Sardi's light, walls papered in caricatures of stars long faded, caricatures that now included a sketch of Eleanor from her Variety cover shoot. Luke nursed a whiskey neat, his sketchpad open on the table, charcoal flying as he captured Thorpe's scowl from memory. "That guy's a walking midlife crisis. Bet he cries during Les Mis." Eleanor chuckled, low and throaty, crossing her legs with the poise of someone who'd stared down Murdoch clones. Harlan's more phantom, hiding behind masks, pulling strings from the catwalks. But he's vulnerable right now. Apex is bleeding ad revenue to my platforms. That card? It's bait. Zachary, picking at the label on his beer bottle, forced a grin. Bait for what? Mom, you gonna tank his merger? She arched a brow, her silver-streaked bob catching the chandelier light. Not tank. Expose. There's a whistleblower in his ranks, claims Apex's been suppressing queer creators on their feeds. Shadow bans, algorithm tweaks. Ring any bells for you too? It did. Luke's cafe feed had dried up last month, his drag portraits buried under thirst traps and crypto scams. Zach's pro bono case files brimmed with similar stories, apps that preached inclusion but coded exclusion. "So, what's the play?" Luke asked, his voice dropping to conspiracy hush. Eleanor's eyes sparkled, the huntress in her element. "Intermission chat. I'll soften him up. You boys play wingmen. Flirt a little, make him drop his guard." "But Luke, easy on the charm," Zach finished, elbowing his twin. It was their shorthand, born from years of tag-teaming crushes, Luke the spark, Zach the sustain. But tonight, the air crackled differently, charged with the residue of Thorpe's gaze. As if summoned, Thorpe materialized at their booth, champagne flute in hand, assistants dismissed like spent cartridges. "Eleanor, mind if I join? Seems we're all fans of defying gravity tonight." She gestured magnanimously. Pull up a chair, Harlan. Boys, this is the man who once funded my first podcast. Pre-serial boom. Thorpe slid in beside Zach. Too close, Luke noted, the scent of his cologne invading like a hostile takeover. Bergamot and ambition. Zachary Voss, right? Yale Law, class of 23, saw your name on a fellowship list. Impressive. Zach stiffened. A microtwitch Luke clocked instantly. He knows him. Yeah, that's me. Small world. Small pond, Thorpe corrected, his knee brushing Zach's under the table, a accidental graze that lingered. Yale was where I cut my teeth. Frat parties, late-night debates. Remember that mixer in Jonathan Edwards? You were unforgettable. Luke's charcoal snapped in his fist. Zach's face was a mask, polite, but his knuckles whitened on the bottle. Must have been a doppelganger. I stuck to the library. Eleanor steered smoothly. Harlan, let's talk shop. Your ad metrics, flatlining. My data shows queer audiences fleeing to Voss. Why fight it? Partner up. Inclusive algorithms. Co-branded campaigns. Thorpe leaned back. Eyes on Zach. Inclusion's a buzzword. Real change? That's personal. His hand grazed Zach's forearm, light as a stock tip. Like reconnecting with old flames. The booth went arctic. Luke's vision tunneled. Old flames? But Zach bolted upright, chair scraping. Excuse me. Need air. Luke followed, fury propelling him through the lounge's crush, out to the alley behind the theater where dumpsters hummed with the city's underbelly. Zach leaned against the brick, breaths ragged, the neon from a nearby marquee painting him in electric blue. Talk, Luke demanded, softer than he felt. Now, Zachary's laugh was hollow, echoing off the fire escapes. Sophomore year. Study abroad in New Haven. Wait, no. Yale's in New Haven. But it was a conference. Harlan was a guest lecturer. Big shot mentor. We hooked up. Once. Thought it was mutual. Next morning, ghosted. Said it was optics. Couldn't risk the board sniffing out his phase. Luke's world fractured. Not jealousy, never that. Not with Zach. But betrayal's echo. The kind that made their twin bond feel like a shield with cracks. That asshole. And Mom knew. No. Swore me to silence. Didn't want to drag the family name. Zach slid down the wall, knees to chest. I was 19. Luke. First real heartbreak. Thought I was over it. Luke crouched, cupping his twin's face, thumbs tracing the familiar jawline, the one that mirrored his own. You're not. But we are now. Together, their foreheads touched, breaths sinking in the chill November air. And for a moment, the alley was theirs. No CEOs, no spotlights, just the quiet romance of survival. Back inside, the bell rang for Act 2, but the real curtain rose on vengeance. As La Vie Boheme erupted on stage, Luke whispered to Eleanor, "He's Zach's ex. The dick who bailed." Her eyes flashed, Mama Bear mode engaged. Then we don't just expose him. We dismantle. The show blurred into a haze of anthems and aches. But post-curtain, as the crowd spilled onto the sidewalk, Thorpe cornered them again, this time in the stage door alley, where fans clamored for autographs. Zachary, he called, voice oily. A word? For old times. Zach hesitated, Luke's hand in his like an anchor. Eleanor stepped up, card already extended anew. Old times are bankrupt, Harlan. But here's a fresh start. Resign from the board by dawn, or Voss drops the story that's been marinating. Your phase? It's front page now with receipts. Thorpe's facade cracked, a vein pulsing at his temple. Blackmail? From you. Justice, she corrected. My son deserves better than your scraps. He lunged, not at her, but toward Zach, grabbing his wrist in a grip that screamed possession. You think you can? Luke exploded, shoving Thorpe back with a force born of every slur, every sidelong glance. Hands off my brother. The word brother hung heavy, laced with the unspoken lover, for in their world, the lines blurred beautifully. Security swarmed, badges flashing, and Thorpe was escorted out amid flashes from paparazzi who'd smelled blood. But as the adrenaline ebbed, Zach pulled Luke aside, voice trembling. It's not just him. I kept it from you too. The betrayal, it's mine. Luke's heart clenched. We tell everything. Not this. Feared it'd change us. The alley spun, confessions piling like autumn leaves. But in that vulnerability, something shifted. Not fracture, but forge. They kissed then, fierce, forgiving, the first real one since their fumbling teens, sealing the pact that twins like them were built for more than mirrors. They were built for mending. Eleanor watched from the shadows, a tear tracing her rouge. Her boys, her warriors. The night wasn't over, but the war, it was just warming up. Dawn crept over the East River like a reluctant apology, painting the Brooklyn Bridge in hues of bruised peach and steel gray. The Voss loft in Dumbo, exposed brick, reclaimed wood beams, a view that screamed, I made it without saying a word, was alive with the clatter of Keurig pods and half-eaten bagels. Luke paced the open kitchen, phone glued to his ear, venting to their chosen auntie, a drag legend named Ruby Redux who'd officiated their non-legal twin vow ceremony at 21. Girl, that man's got more skeletons than a Halloween float. You should have seen Mom pow. Card out like Wonder Woman's lasso. Luke's free hand gestured wildly, knocking a mug to the floor. Shattered, porcelain shards scattering like Thorpe's dignity. From the leather sectional, Zachary nursed black coffee, legs tucked under him, still in last night's jeans. Sleep had been a casualty. Instead, they'd talked till 4 a.m., unraveling the Harlan knot thread by thread. Zach's confession had cracked open old wounds. Not just the ghosting, but the shame he'd internalized. The way he'd pulled away from Luke in those post-Yale months, burying hookups in apps that promised anonymity but delivered ghosts. Luke, Zach said now, voice rough as the waterfront fog. Stop pacing. You're wearing a trench. Luke hung up, flopping beside him, their shoulders slotting together like puzzle pieces forged in the same fire. Can't help it. This feels big. Mom's playing 4D chess. But what if he fights dirty? He will. Zach set his mug down, turning to face his twin. Those green eyes, his eyes, held a depth that made Luke's chest ache with love's peculiar gravity. They'd always been this, more than blood, a constellation of shared secrets and stolen glances. Puberty had twisted it into something electric. Tentative explorations in the basement rec room while Eleanor worked late shifts. But society's glare had cooled it to embers, platonic by necessity, until nights like last night's reignited the blaze. Zach's hand found Luke's, fingers interlacing. Remember summer 18? That road trip to Provincetown? We swore no more hiding. Luke nodded, thumb tracing Zach's knuckles. Yeah. And I broke it too, didn't I? That painter in Bushwick thought one night would scratch the itch. But it was you I wanted waking up next to. The admission hung, vulnerable as a first kiss. Zach leaned in, lips brushing Luke's temple. Then let's not break it again. Thorpe's poison, but he's our catalyst. No more half-truths. Their kiss deepened then, slow and searching, tasting of coffee and catharsis. It was the kind of intimacy that bypassed words. Twin telepathy amplified by touch, Luke's hand sliding under Zach's shirt, mapping the familiar planes of his chest, eliciting a gasp that echoed their boyhood whispers. The loft faded. It was just them, reclaiming what fear had deferred. A buzzer shattered the spell. Eleanor's code, insistent. She swept in minutes later, laptop under arm, takeout from Essa-Bagel in a grease-spotted bag. Fuel up, warriors. Harlan's on the warpath. My inbox is a minefield. Threats from his lawyers, olive branches from his PR flax. Luke disentangled from Zach, cheeks flushing, not shame, but the thrill of being caught in joy. What did you expect? Guys cornered. Eleanor unpacked the bagels, her movements precise, maternal. Expected pushback. Got a doozy. He leaked your sketches, Luke. To page 6. Queer artist's homophobic meltdown at Broadway twisted the shove into assault. Luke's blood iced. His art, those raw, unfiltered portraits, was his lifeline, sold in underground galleries from Soho to Silver Lake. A smear like that could tank gigs, bury him under cancellation's boot. Son of a... Zach was on his feet, fury reigniting. We'll sue. Defamation. I've got precedents stacked. Eleanor's smile was fierce. Already drafting. But counterpunch. I greenlit the exposé. Drops at noon, Apex's closet. How Harlan Thorpe weaponized apps against LGBTQ+ voices. Whistleblower solid, ex-dev who coded the bans. And Zach, your story's the heart. Anonymized, if you want. Zach hesitated, the weight of exposure pressing like a stage light. Me? It's ancient history. It's now, Luke countered, standing to flank him. Your truth. Our truth. The decision crystallized over lox and cream cheese. Decisions hashed like scripts in a writer's room. By 10 a.m., Zach was on a call with the out editor, voice steady as he recounted the ghosting. Not salaciously, but human, the ache of rejection, the systemic rot that let men like Thorpe climb by stepping on necks like his. Noon hit like a thunderclap. Voss Media's site crashed under traffic, the story going viral faster than a TikTok dance. Twitter X, whatever the rebrand, lit up. Apex outed trending, allies from GLAAD to indie creators amplifying. Luke's sketches, ironically, resurfaced in solidarity memes, his phoenix tattoo inked onto Thorpe's Photoshop scowl. But Harlan didn't fold quietly. By 2 p.m., a counterleak, doctored emails purporting Eleanor had seduced board members for Voss's rise. Sexist drivel, but it stung, dredging tabloid ghosts from her second divorce. She fielded it with a presser from the loft balcony, wind whipping her scarf like a flag of defiance. Lies are Harlan's love language, she quipped to the cameras. But truth, that's mine. And my family's unbreakable. Luke watched from the kitchen, pride swelling till it hurt. Zach wrapped arms around him from behind, chin on shoulder. She's a badass, like her sons. Luke turned, capturing Zach's lips in a kiss that promised forever. Soft at first, then urgent, bodies pressing against the island counter. Hands roamed, shirts discarded in a trail to the bedroom, where sunlight slanted through blinds like spotlights on their skin. It was worship. Luke tracing the curve of Zach's hip, Zach's mouth mapping Luke's collarbone, gasps mingling in a symphony of rediscovery. No rush, no audience, just them, twins in love, bodies and souls entwined in a dance as old as their shared womb. After, tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender and last night's takeout, Zach murmured, "What if this breaks us?" The spotlight. Luke propped on elbow, finger to Zach's lips. "It mends. We're vases we build from ruins." Evening brought the storm's eye. A summons to Apex's Midtown Tower, Thorpe's summit disguised as olive branch. Eleanor insisted they go, trio united, armor of tailored blazers and unshakable gaze. The elevator ride was silent, 52 floors of glass and ambition, depositing them in a boardroom that overlooked the twinkling grid like a god's chessboard. Thorpe waited alone, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, a vulnerability play. Eleanor. "Boys. Sit. Let's end this farce." She took the head seat, uninvited. "Farce? You started the show, Harlan. Ghosting my son, suppressing voices, then playing victim? Curtains yours to close, resign, donate to queer causes." And we paused the series. He steepled fingers, eyes on Zach. "Zachary, this vendetta, it's personal. I was scared then. Ambitious. But I never stopped thinking. Save it." Zach cut in, voice steel. "You don't get redemption on my timeline." Luke's hand found Zach's under the table, a lifeline. But Thorpe's gaze shifted. Sly. "Fine. But know this, I have dirt. On all of you. That twin vow video from Provincetown? Leaked to the highest bidder. This tabloid gold. Incest angle sells." The word landed like a gut punch. Luke's vision blurred. Rage. Violation. Their private right. Ruby's campy ceremony on the dunes. Vows exchanged in seashell rings. Through fire, flood, and fools like you. Eleanor rose, slow as a verdict. "Threaten my family? You've lost." She tapped her phone. Livestream engaged. Out's team capturing every word. "Smile, Harlan. You're live." His empire crumbled in pixels. Gasps from invisible viewers. Stocks dipping in real-time alerts. Thorpe slumped, defeated. "What do you want?" "Forgiveness," Zach said, surprising them all. "Not for you, for me. But justice first." They left him there, a king dethroned, the city lights mocking his fall. In the elevator descent, Luke pulled Zach close, kiss fierce against the mirrored walls. "Proud of you. Us," Zach breathed. But as the doors opened to the lobby's bustle, a figure waited. Not security, but a courier, envelope in hand. Inside, Thorpe's resignation, and a check 6 figures, earmarked for a queer youth center in Brooklyn. Victory tasted bittersweet, like the first rain after drought. But betrayal's shadow lingered, whispering of fractures yet to mend. The fallout from Apex's implosion hit like a nor'easter, whipping through Manhattan's canyons with gale force gossip. By week's end, Harlan Thorpe was a punchline on SNL's Cold Open, portrayed by a host in a comically oversized suit, crooning a parody of "Light My Candle" about lighting up suppression scandals. Voss Media's stock soared, Eleanor's TED Talk invite landed like confetti, and the twins? They became accidental icons. New York Post splash, twin flames, the brothers who burned a bully, complete with a tasteful shot from the alley kiss, blurred for decency. But icons bleed too. Luke's inbox overflowed with commissions. Queer icons reimagined as superheroes. But trolls slithered in, venom about incestuous freaks. He deleted them by the dozen, but each stung, papercut to the soul. Zach's internship morphed into a full-time gig at the firm, pro bono cases stacking like Jenga blocks, but nightmares woke him at 3 a.m. Thorpe's grip on his wrist, a chokehold of what-ifs. They coped the American way: therapy, takeout, and tent poles. One crisp Saturday in November, Eleanor whisked them to the High Line, that elevated ribbon of wildflowers and whispers snaking through the meatpacking district's ghosts. Bundled in peacoats against the bite, they strolled amid rustling grasses, the Hudson's sparkle winking like a co-conspirator. "Boys," Eleanor said, linking arms with both. "This city's forgiven worse. But you, don't let it scar." Luke kicked a pebble, watching it skitter toward the rail. "Easier said. Feels like we're exhibits now, A or B, freaks or heroes." Zach squeezed his hand, public but defiant. "See us?" "Always was." She nodded, steering them to a bench overlooking the water, where freighters lumbered like weary elephants. "Your father, God, that man, bolted because he couldn't handle the mirror you two held up. Same-sex love? In his Jersey Catholic bubble? Nah. But I saw strength. Still do. The mention of Dad was rare, a buried landmine. He'd remarried in Cali, spawned a straight daughter they'd never met, Christmas cards signed in looping script, thinking of you always. Lies, all of it. But Eleanor spun it into gold. He taught me resilience. You teach me hope. They sat in companionable silence. The cities hum a lullaby, taxis honking below, a busker's guitar strumming Wonderwall off-key. Luke sketched idly on a napkin. 3 figures against the skyline, intertwined roots beneath. Zach watched, head on shoulder, and for the first time since the Majestic, peace settled like dusk. But peace was fragile as a first snow. Monday brought the blade. An anonymous tip to Eleanor's desk. A USB drive slipped under the loft door. Inside, not just Thorpe's dirt, but theirs. Grainy footage from Yale, Zach and Harlan in a dorm lounge. Kisses blurred but unmistakable. Worse, a audio clip of Zach, post-ghosting, drunk dialing Luke. He's right, Lukey. We're wrong. Too close. Gotta pull back. Luke played it once, then smashed the drive under his boot, shards glinting like accusations. How? Who? Zach's face crumpled, recognition dawning. One of his assistants. The blonde from the theater saw her at the summit, taking notes. Betrayal's second wave crashed harder, tidal and treacherous. Not just Harlan's vendetta, but the intimate sabotage, their pain, weaponized. Zach retreated to the fire escape that night, chain-smoking camels he'd sworn off, staring at the bridge's lights like a man adrift. Luke followed, blanket draped over shoulders. Talk to me. Don't ice out. Zach exhaled smoke, a dragon in defeat. That call. I was wrecked. Thought loving you, like that, made me the monster. Thorpe planted it. But I let it root. Luke knelt, taking the cigarette, stubbing it out. And I let you carry it alone. We're twins. Idiot. Burdens have when shared. They talked till the stars wheeled. Confessions cascading. Zach's guilt over pulling away. Luke's flings as distractions from the void. Culminated in tears. Zach's first. Hot and unashamed. Luke holding him as sobs racked, the blanket a cocoon against the cold. "I love you," Zach whispered finally. "Not brotherly, but whole. All of you. Always have." Luke's response was action, pulling him inside, to the bed where they'd whispered boyhood dreams. Lovemaking followed, tender and transformative, exploring boundaries blurred by blood, but sanctified by choice. Luke's lips on Zach's throat, eliciting moans that were music. Zach's hands pinning Luke's wrists, a gentle dominance that spoke of trust rebuilt. It was erotic elegy. Bodies arching in rhythm, climaxes crashing like waves on Coney boardwalks, afterglow a tangle of limbs and laughter. Morning brought resolve. They confronted the leak. Zach's firm filed injunctions. Luke's artist collective rallied for counterart. Murals of Phoenix twins rising over Chelsea walls. Eleanor, ever the strategist, turned the USB's ashes into fuel. A follow-up piece. Betrayal's echo, how trauma lingers in the feed, anonymized but aching with their truth. Climax brewed midweek. Uninvited. Thorpe's apology gala. A black tie redemption at the plaza, ostensibly for LGBTQ+ causes but reeking of PR polish. Invites arrived via courier, gold embossed, audacious. "Come," the note read. "Let's bury the hatchet." Eleanor burned hers in the sink, flame dancing like schadenfreude. Trap, but Zach, eyes steely, pocketed his. "No. Closure. We go all of us. End it on our terms." Luke backed him, heart pounding. Together, the plaza's grand ballroom glittered like a fever dream. Chandeliers dripping crystals. Waiters in penguin suits ferrying caviar on toast points. Thorpe held court by the fountain. New suit impeccable. Arm around a date. A model-esque type with eyes like debt collectors. He spotted them immediately. Smile practiced as Botox. "Zachary. Luke. Eleanor. Glad you came." His handshake was limp, eyes darting. "This is for us, all of us. Check to the center, $1,000,000. In your names." Zach accepted the envelope, but his voice was ice. "Generous. But money doesn't mend spines," you snapped. Thorpe's facade flickered. "Water under the bridge." "I was a coward," Luke interjected, arm around Zach's waist. "Still are." The room hushed, heads turning, socialites, donors, a smattering of genuine activists. Eleanor stepped forward. Mike commandeered from the MC. "Ladies, gents, allies, Harlan's check is a start. But real change? It's in the stories we suppress no more." She nodded to Zach, who took the stage, unscripted, raw. "I was 19 when this man taught me love could be a transaction. Ghosted for optics. It broke me, made me doubt the deepest bond one have." His eyes found Luke's, unwavering. "With my twin. Not taboo triumph. We're queer. We're close. We're unbreakable." Applause erupted, thunderous, but Thorpe bolted pale, pursued by whispers. In the chaos, a scuffle, his date, the assistant, lunged at Zach with a wine glass, shards flying. Luke shielded, glass nicking his arm, a shallow cut, blood beating like rubies. Security swarmed, but the damage was symbolic. Thorpe exposed, fleeing into the night. Paramedics bandaged Luke on site, fussing over the hero twin, while Zach held his hand, kissing the bandage with reverence. Outside, under the plaza's awning, rain slicking the streets, Eleanor hugged them fierce. "My lions. You slayed." But as cabs splashed by, Zach pulled Luke into the downpour, kisses mingling with raindrops, passionate, unapologetic, the city their witness. Betrayal beaten back, but the scar? It would fade into story, a chapter in their epic. Yet, in the quiet cab ride home, Zach's phone buzzed. Unknown number. "It's not over," the text read. Attached, a photo of them, in the loft bed, taken through the window. Stalker? Saboteur? The game, seemed, had sequels. December descended on New York like a velvet glove over an iron fist. Holiday lights strung across Fifth Avenue like garlands of false cheer. Salvation Army bells clanging discordant carols amid the grind of Black Friday mobs. The Voss loft transformed into a Yuletide bunker. Fairy lights looped around beams. A Fraser fir shedding needles on the Persian rug. Ornaments hand-blown from a Provincetown glassblower who'd seen their story splashed in the Advocate. But the intruder photo cast long shadows, turning tinsel to tripwires. Luke installed cameras, Ring doorbells, motion sensor floods. His artist's eye now paranoid, scanning alleys for lurkers. Probably Thorpe's last gasp, he told Zach over mulled wine, but his voice wavered, the cut on his arm still tender under the bandage. Zach, buried in case files by the fire, nodded absently. Firms tracing the number. Burner, but pings to Midtown. He's unraveling, lost his board seat. Divorce papers filed. Wife cited the scandal. Karma's bite was sweet, but vengeance's aftertaste soured. Eleanor, jetting to a Davos panel on digital ethics, left them with a stocked fridge and a Glock in the safe. Just in case. Darlings. Her absence amplified the echo. The loft felt vast, vulnerable, their love a beacon for moths with malice. Nights blurred into ritual. Dinner from Seamless. Pad Thai for Luke's spice kick. Sushi for Zach's precision, then bed, where bodies sought solace in friction. Sex became sacrament, a defiant fuck you to the watcher. Luke on top, hips grinding slow, drawing out Zach's whimpers like confessions. Zach flipping him, fingers teasing, building to crescendos that shook the headboard. Post-bliss, they'd laugh, breathless, bonded, tracing tattoos and freckles, whispering futures. A gallery show for Luke in Chelsea, Zach arguing before SCOTUS on app equity. But the texts escalated. I see you. Twisted twins. Grainy shots, Zach at the bodega, Luke sketching in Washington Square. Paranoia peaked one blizzardy eve. Luke spotting a shadow across the street. Trench coat, fedora straight from Noir. He bolted out, snow crunching under boots, tackling the figure into a drift. Gotcha, but it was a kid 18. Tops, pale and panicked, phone tumbling into slush. What the hell? Luke hauled him up, fists clenched. The boy stammered, eyes wide. Mr. Voss? It's not. I'm a fan. From the gala. Thought. Someone was following me too. Messages, saying spill on you or else. Zach arrived, coat flapping, pulling Luke off. Easy. Kid. Talk. Huddled in the loft. Hot cocoa steaming. The story spilled. Jamie, film student at NYU, outed by Thorpe's team during the leak hunt. Promised hush money for dirt on the Vosses. Hired as unwitting spy. Phone hacked for the photos. He said you'd ruined him. Wanted payback. But I couldn't, I saw the video. Your speech. Real. Real. The word anchored them. Zach called his firm. By dawn, Jamie had protection, an internship at Voss, Therapy comped. But the revelation cracked wider. Thorpe wasn't solo. A network festered. Old boys club tentacles in tech and media, shielding their own. Climax coalesced at the firm's holiday mixer. A glittering affair at Capitali. Chandeliers like frozen fireworks. Open bar flowing with eggnog martinis. Luke and Zach arrived arm in candy. Matching velvet blazers, a nod to their synced style. Turning heads with synchronized smirks. Twin goals, a paralegal quipped, toasting their resilience. Eleanor flew in mid-toast, fresh from Switzerland, commandeering the mic for an impromptu speech. To justice, not blind, but queer-eyed. And to my sons, who taught me love's the ultimate algorithm. Cheers swelled, but undercurrent hummed. Intel from Jamie pinpointed Thorpe at the bar, slurring scotch, eyes bloodshot. He's here, Zach murmured, spine stiffening. Luke's pulse raced, confront or evade, but fate scripted collision. Thorpe lurched toward them, glass sloshing. Vases. Merry fucking Christmas. Security hovered, but Zach waved them off. Harlan. Done stalking, a bitter laugh. Stalking? Protecting my legacy. You paraded our dirt, turned me into meme fodder. But I know your secret. He jabbed a finger at Luke, then Zach. That bond is sick. Blood's thicker. All right, incestuous. The word boomeranged, drawing gasps. Luke's vision redlined, fist cocking, but Zach blocked. Voice thunder. Sick? You're the one who preys on power gaps. I was a kid, you were the adult. Own it. Thorpe swung wild. Glass shattering on the floor. Shards slicing Zach's palm. Chaos erupted. Guests scattering. Eleanor diving in with a fire extinguisher like a shield. Luke tackled Thorpe, pinning him amid toppled chairs. Punches landing, crack on jaw. Thud to gut, catharsis in bruises. Cops arrived. Cuffs clicking on Thorpe's wrists. Assault, he spat, bloodied lip curling. You'll pay, Zach. Bandage fresh from a medic. Met his gaze. Already did. But we're square now. As blue lights flashed outside, the vases clustered, Eleanor dabbing Zach's hand, Luke's knuckles swelling. Proud, she whispered. But enough drama. Home. Cider. Die Hard marathon. The ride back was quiet, snow muffling the world. In the loft, with yippee-ki-yay blasting, they patched wounds literal and not. Luke's ice pack. Zach's stitches. Eleanor's herbal tea. Laughter crept in, Thorpe's mugshot already memed on group chats. But in bed later, Zach traced Luke's bruises. Was it worth it? Luke pulled him close, legs entwining. Every hit. For us. Their lovemaking was gentle this time. Healing, slow grinds, whispered endearments, release a sigh of surrender. Afterward, curled spoon style, Zach murmured, marry me. Legally, after law school, Luke's heart stuttered. Twincest wedding? Scandalous. Revolutionary. Kiss sealed it. Sleepy and sure. New Year's Eve loomed, but betrayal's embers smoldered. A final text. From Thorpe's lawyer. Settlement offer. NDA attached. Eleanor shredded it at breakfast. No gag. We roar. The year turned amid Times Square confetti. The twins kissing at midnight under the ball's glow. Unmasked. Unapologetic. But as fireworks bloomed, a figure watched from the crowd. Not foe, but ally Jamie. Phone raised in cheers. The network, cracking, one exposure at a time. Yet, In the cab home, Luke's phone buzzed. Voss Media alert. Thorpe's suicide note. Faked? No. Genuine. Penned in a Hamptons motel. Body pulled from the surf. You win. Tell Zachary I'm sorry. Guilt crashed. Wave after wave. Zach read it silent. Tears carving paths. He was broken. Like I could have been. Luke held him through the sobs, rocking like a lullaby. But you chose light. We did. Humanity's twist. Not triumph, but tragedy's mercy. Thorpe's end forced reflection. Forgiveness not for him, but for the boy Zach once was. They attended the closed casket service incognito, laying a phoenix sketch on the grave. Rise from ashes, even villains. Spring thawed the grief, blooming into Advocacy, the Voss Center for Queer Tech Equity, funded by Thorpe's forfeited assets. Luke's gallery show, Mirrors and Men's, sold out, portraits of twins in eternal embrace. Zach passed the bar, arguing his first case on algorithmic bias. Their wedding, a summer affair in Fire Island Pines, Ruby officiating, Eleanor walking them both down the aisle. Vows echoed their twin pact. Through fire, flood, fools. Rings exchanged, simple gold bands etched with phoenixes. But the story's heart? In quiet moments. Coffee on the balcony, sketches shared, bodies entwined in dawn light. Love, dramatic and deep, humanistic in its flaws, betrayal scar a tattoo of survival. Summer in Fire Island blurred the line between hedonism and healing. The island's dune-backed beaches a queer utopia where bodies bronzed unashamed, volleyball nets strung with laughter and lust. The Voss wedding was no exception. A pop-up ceremony on the sand, gauzy canopy fluttering like butterfly wings, guests in floral crowns and linen slacks, Ruby Redux in full diva regalia, wielding a microphone like a scepter. Luke and Zach stood barefoot, toes digging into warm grains, hands clasped as waves whispered approval. Eleanor's dress, ivory silk, nipped at the waist, hugged her like an old lover, her eyes misty as she flanked them, a maternal honor guard. My boys, she murmured, squeezing their elbows. From Jersey basements to this? Magic. Ruby's voice boomed, campy and profound. Do you, Luke Voss, take Zachary, your mirror, your madness, to love through spotlights and scandals, in sickness and in snark? Luke's grin was sun-kissed, eyes locked on Zach's. Hell yes. Through every plot twist. And you, Zachary, take Luke, your spark, your storm, to cherish in the calm and the chaos, forsaking all firewalls. Zach's response was a kiss before the I do, stealing Ruby's thunder to cheers and whoops. Rings slid on, phoenix etched, warm from their pockets, and then the real feast. Clambake sizzling, rose flowing from magnums. A DJ spinning rent remixes into Diana Ross anthems. Luke and Zach danced first, slow sway to it last. Bodies flush, hips sinking like they'd never been apart. But even idols have undercurrents. As twilight bruised the sky violet, a guest pulled Eleanor aside. Voss exec, tablet in hand. Harlan's estate, final disbursements. Centers funded for years. But a letter. For Zachary. She delivered it later, by the bonfire's glow, where marshmallows charred and stories spun. Zach read it alone first, on a dune crest, wind tousling his hair. Luke watched from below, heart in throat, betrayal's ghost. One last haunt? It's closure, Zach said finally, descending to share. Thorpe's scrawl, shaky, I was the villain because I feared the hero in you. Loved wrong. Lived worse. Forgive if you can. Build what I broke. Enclosed, a Yale keychain. Tarnished. Their first date's memento. Zach tossed it into the flames, watching it curl to ash. Forgiven. For me. He pulled Luke up, kiss tasting of salt and smoke. No more shadows. The night devolved into revelry. Skinny dipping under stars, bodies buoyant in phosphorescent waves. Eleanor's tipsy karaoke, belting defying gravity off-key but fierce. By dawn, the beach was a canvas of footprints and forgotten flip-flops. The couple crashing in a beachfront bungalow, hammock bed swaying, lulled by surf. Marriage didn't change the mechanics. Still twins, still lovers, but amplified the mundane to miracle. Grocery runs in Brooklyn, handholds over arugula. Luke's easel in the corner. Zach's briefs scattered like confetti. Conflicts arose. Human scale. Luke's wanderlust clashing with Zach's routine. Arguments flaring over burnt toast or late nights. But make-up sex was legend. Kitchen counters christened. Showers steaming with sighs. Each reconciliation a reaffirmation. Fall brought fruits. The center's ribbon cutting. A gleaming space in Williamsburg with VR labs for queer coders. Murals by Luke depicting digital phoenixes. Zach headlined the gala. Suit sharp. Speech soaring. Tech promised connection. We demand equity. No more ghosts in the machine. Eleanor, semi-retired to advisory, beamed from the dais her boys, her legacy. But humanism's core pulsed in the quiet, mentoring Jamie through his coming out, funding scholarships for Jersey kids like they'd been. One evening, a letter arrived from their half-sister, Dad's daughter, saw your story. He talks about you now. Misses you. Can we? Zach read it aloud. Luke's head in lap. Bridge or burn? Build? Luke decided. We're Vases, we connect. The reunion was awkward. Coffee in a Cali cafe. Dad grayed and humbled. Half-sis shy but sparkling. No hugs. But handshakes evolved to emails. Tentative threads weaving a frayed tapestry. Forgiveness, not absolution, human, messy. Winter circled back to Manhattan. Snow blanketing the majestic like forgiveness hush. 1-year anniversary. VIP seats to Rent revival. Comped by the house. As seasons of love swelled, Luke leaned into Zach, whispering, 525,600 what? Minutes loving you. Zach's hand in his, ring glinting. Infinite. Post-show. Lobby unchanged. Velvet ropes intact. They lingered. Ghosts banished. Eleanor joined. Arm looped in theirs. Full circle. But life's drama didn't end. It evolved. Luke's solo exhibit in LA, Twin Flames. Unextinguished, drew crowds, including a producer sniffing biopic rights. Zach clerked for a circuit judge, cases carving paths for queer rights. Eleanor dated, a barista with tattoos and tenderness, proving reinvention's universal. Yet, the story's denouement was no grand bow, but a humanistic fade. A rainy Sunday in the loft, thunder rumbling like applause. Luke sketched by the window, Zach reading briefs, Eleanor napping on the couch after brunch. No villains, no spotlights, just family, forged in fire, loving loud. As rain pattered, Zach crossed to Luke, peering at the page. Them, 3 silhouettes against the skyline, roots entwined. Masterpiece. Luke set the charcoal down, pulling him onto the sill. Ours. Kiss followed. Deep and domestic. The world outside a backdrop to their forever. In America's grand, gritty tapestry, where dreams clash with despots, love battles legacy, the Voss twins wove their thread, dramatic in defiance, emotional in embrace, romantic in resilience, humanistic in healing. Betrayal's sting? A scar, not a sentence. And in its wake, they bloomed, unapologetic, unbreakable, utterly alive. Epilogue whispers years on, gray at the temples, they'd return to the majestic, grandkids in tow, queer and curious seats front row, story passed like a playbill. Once upon a switch, it'd begin, two boys, a card, and a love that rewrote the script.